Welcome, everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today, we're going to be talking about pet grief with a pet grief coach. If you don't have a pet, I still want you to tune in, stay around, and learn about the aspects that we're going to be talking about in today's episode. Because you might not have a pet today. You might maybe have one down the road. Maybe you're a person that just does not like pets, and you say, I'll never have a pet. Maybe one day you are down and out. I see this quite often with individuals who have found themselves in a situation where they don't have a home to call home. They're trying to navigate their daily living situation. What tends to happen is that they find someone to love them. And it's typically not a person. It could be a cat, it could be a dog. It's someone or something. I don't know if you want to consider a dog a person, but it's a living creature that will love you. In life, love, something that we're missing today. In our world, we are quick to hate, we are quick to ridicule, we are quick to detest, to yell and to shout, to belittle, but we're not quick to give a helping hand. We're not quick to give a kind word. We're not quick to show appreciation. We need to learn the aspect of love. And typically, we're not focused on love until we don't have it anymore. And I understand men and women love different, but love is still the aspect of caring and kindness. Now that we have that foundation, what would happen if we knew we had someone that cared and loved us so readily? You know what you would do as a person? You would give yourself your all. I see videos of dads and husbands, and they'll say, this is the reason why I work so hard. Mothers, same thing. This is the reason why I work so hard. You know what that reason is? It's their kids. It's family. Pets can be family too. I know sometimes people don't consider pets family, but that would be maybe 10% of people? That means the majority, 90%, are treating those pets just like family. Christmas time comes, they're getting a gift too. They have a stocking full of bones, or a stocking full of treats or food or whatever. I remember even me growing up, when we had the dog at Christmas time, they got a big, huge dinosaur bone. And I actually thought it was from a dinosaur at the time. And I was like, oh, wow, the dog has a dinosaur bone. And the dog would, chew this bone, and very loving, because we were able to go and take the bone from her and see if she would bite us. And we were always testing the waters as kids, as we were, but she never nipped, never barked, never detested anything we did. It was interesting, because if I did that to a human, I took their food away, what would happen emotionally to them? They would yell, they would scream, they would shout, they would maybe make me feel a certain way because I made them feel a certain way. Animals don't hold grudges. And if they do it in a very sly way, like cats. But what happens when we lose the family member that we loved? Our fur babies, our animals. We go through that process. It's hard. Yeah. We get through that process. Yeah. But many people, they don't truly understand what just happened. They might have just associated that they lost something, but they have also failed to remember all the wonderful things that they gained. Because grief is not only about loss, it can be about what we gain too. And today we're going to be talking about all the nuances of grief when it comes to our pets with a pet loss grief coach, Rachel Shirley. Welcome, Rachel Shirley, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for coming on. You are going to be my first guest that has this wonderful coaching personality of you are a pet loss grief coach. And pets are near and dear to my heart. I've had cats, I have had dogs, turtles. I don't think I had a fish, but pets bring something into your life. They teach you how to love. Because when we start to compare our life to their life, our life is going to be decades long versus their life can be maybe a decade or two. And when someone loses a pet that they treat as family, it could be hard, just like losing a loved one. And it's important that we understand the aspect of going through the grieving process when we lose a loved one, which is a pet. And we can also maybe even look at it in the lens of, is it the same as if we lost a human companion? But in your own words, tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help.
Well, thank you so much. And first, I just really want to lift you up. You are doing amazing work. And so I really admire how you're serving in such a great capacity. And thank you for having me on and bringing this topic to light. Definitely. I have been a certified coach since 2006, and I've been coaching in several different capacities throughout my life. And I'm a woman of faith. I really know that God has equipped me to be able to talk about the really hard stuff. And at one point in my life, I personally struggled with alcohol. And by the grace of God, my husband and I, we've been sober for, I don't know, close to 13 years, something like that. I lost count, but I share that with you to just let you know that I did some recovery coaching, and just through my life, God really led me to being able to support people that are in pain and help them move forward. Long story short, I was in the leadership industry, and when COVID hit, I said, I want to change. So I quit and I decompressed and really got grounded and thought, where do I really want to serve now? And found out that pet loss coaching is a thing. And I dove right in. So yeah, I've been doing it since, well, 2020. Yeah, when COVID hit.
Congratulations are in order for you and your husband because it's a huge accomplishment. It's just huge to be able to accomplish something and then to sustain it because we can always have that demon inside of us, that weaker self telling us to go back and to give in. But that temptation, it brings more hardship into the life. When we find a higher self, a higher purpose, and we commit to that, we become more powerful in a sense. It's almost like we can do the things that maybe we believe that we cannot do. And we can even put it in the lens of bear goggles or something like that, or like a liquid courage, where if you go to the club or go dancing, and you're maybe not a good dancer, and you're going there, you have a couple of drinks, and now you're Mr. and Mrs. Everything, right? Everyone loves you. And that is your coping mechanism. But today, many people, they don't know how to cope properly. If they lose someone, they lose a job, they go into these negative habits and tendencies. So for you to have gone through that and understand it, you are the best person equipped to help people with the grieving process. Can we look at the grieving process and how it is taught in our world today?
Yeah. So, and thank you for that. Thank you for acknowledging that. It really, it was hard work, and you're right. It can be a dependency and a crutch and easy to go to. Alcohol or anything. Mine was alcohol, wine to be specific. And it was like a liquid courage, and it was part of my identity. Behind the scenes, nobody knew that I personally was struggling inside. Like, why can't I stop? Why do I keep doing these things when I know they aren't the best things for me? I want more in life, but I keep going to this. So yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. Grief taught right now, it's really a beautiful process. And I use that word to just really illustrate and illuminate that I believe that when loss happens, we can't control it. It's kind of that serenity prayer, control what I can and give light to what I can't control. And in grief, there's this beautiful thing that can happen where we can choose to stay in bondage because sometimes it gets comfortable there. And we can also have a choice to propel ourselves out of it. The grief process is very natural, it's normal, it's very important. And so what I do is I work with my clients and really giving them that safe place to let their hair down. There's no judgment. We get deep into whatever they're feeling. Could be angry at God, angry at people, all of the emotions that come up. It's really important to acknowledge them and sit with them until it's time to release them. I help people move through the grieving process with healthy coping mechanisms and healthy ways to do it. Because as we just talked about, there are some not so healthy ways to go through grief.
There's an aspect also when it comes to dealing with hardship or loss that we can do it by ourselves or we can do it together. And I want to speak with you on the pros and the cons of each, because I'm sure we can look at if we grieve by ourselves, there's maybe some benefits and maybe some not so great things could happen. And then if we work together in a group, the pros and the cons to that, if we can talk about the two, would be great.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'll start with the group part. I have had the honor of leading many groups, and it's an honor to do it, most definitely, because it's beautiful. If they're facilitated well, it's a beautiful place where people can really connect and find that they aren't alone in what they're feeling. And it's wonderful to see people when they hear somebody speak and they say, "Oh my goodness, I've been feeling that. I just didn't know how to put it into words." The bond that happens is beautiful, most definitely. I'm a big supporter of community. And when it comes to pet loss, it's really found online. It really is. There are some cities that have some locally, but more than likely, people will find online groups that are brilliant. They're helpful. Most of my clients that I work with prefer the one-on-one. And that's how I work with my clients. Right now, I'm not doing any groups, and I just serve people privately so they can have that safe place to really process, because they're going through some feelings that they never expected. And sometimes those feelings are, the loss is so deep that they didn't realize how it would truly, truly affect them. And so we just sit in that and help them move forward to really understand that it's okay, the value of the relationship that they lost, and how they can turn it and pay it forward, and some legacy work too. Long story in there is groups are amazing. They are really, really helpful. Sometimes they can be toxic. And when I share that, it's because sometimes there's a dependency there, and sometimes it's more of a just tell the story instead of kind of let's tell the story, let's talk about it, and let's find some solutions, right? Because that's what we're here to do. Groups are great, and the private is beautiful too. When people isolate, that's the danger zone. And isolation definitely happens, as you know, in grief, whether you lose a job, lose a relationship, any type of loss, that's what happens. We want to go and isolate.
I'm definitely going to dig deep in that isolate, but just a moment. Because I remember, I guess it was like I was in fourth or fifth grade or something. And I remember I came home from school and my mom was on the sofa. She was crying. And I was like, why are you crying? And she had took the dog to the vet, and the dog was only like 2.5 years old. But the dog had throat cancer, so she had to be put down. And then I remember we had just got back from the corner store. I had a bag of Doritos. It was the sweet chili ones, the purple bag. I remember, just getting the news. I went upstairs. I was just crying. I threw the bag. I didn't even want the chips. And I love those chips. And my sister went to her room. I went to my room, and we were just separated. It was one of probably the first moments in my life where I had to deal with grief. And it wasn't necessarily, my mom coaching me through it or my dad, coaching me through it. It was just, they were there and they might have said, we'll make sure the last moments are good. We got her a steak, hanged out with her, took a bunch of pictures. But then that was the process. And then eventually time, went on. But when we start to look at it in the lens of we only deal with grief when it's presented to us rather than being prepared for it when it comes, because we might know that a pet is going to be leaving us soon or a family member. They are not able to walk, They are not able to go to the bathroom where they're supposed to. They can't see well. We know they're declining. And it's only a matter of time. We can prepare then, but then sometimes we're in denial. And that's when we begin to isolate our emotions and the idea of separating from the pet that we have raised and loved.
Absolutely. And I love how you shared that. And I'm so grateful that your mom did cry because I coach people, parents especially, that are concerned about the kids, right? And I just share with them, this is your chance to model how to grieve. There's a purpose behind this too. And I love how your mom did show her emotion because some people just won't. And I'm sorry for your loss. I know it's difficult as a kid to understand what just happened, for sure. The anticipatory grief, when we anticipate and we know that a death or a loss is coming, our mind can play some tricks on us and we can get into our own pity party, right? My husband and I, we say pity party for one, and that's okay sometimes. And then there's times where it's just this honest conversation with ourselves saying, I know this is going to happen. How can I equip myself? Just like you're saying, how can I equip myself to make this journey one with healthy choices that I can make into a habit so I know when grief comes, it's going to be a familiar friend. Sounds funny, but it really is. It's like, you know how it is when we can avoid things. Avoidance doesn't work. It brings more resistance. But when we actually look and allow ourselves to feel the anticipatory grief, then we aren't so much inclined to separate. And then there's one other point to that. I think it really is about the honesty, right? It's just getting really, really honest and saying, this means a lot to me and my world is about to change. And either I can just go and isolate and separate and be in denial, or I can face it and equip myself to really thrive during this time, that I can turn around and help somebody else down the road. So I think those are the points to really look at when somebody has anticipatory grief.
When we look at grief, you working with it and working with individuals, I want to know, does it come in different shapes and sizes? Because we have this anticipation of something that's going to happen, right? Our pet is going to be leaving us, loved one. And we also have the aspect of something sudden happening where we have to deal with the grief. Let's say one of my dogs early on, also, it was my first dog. Her name was Leisha. She ran into the street. Luckily, she just like broke her leg. Wasn't like deaf, but it has happened quite often where a pet is just rambunctious, the owner loses control, and then it happens so suddenly. Where is that grief different than something that we were able to anticipate, maybe even ruminate on because it happens so suddenly? Is there a difference or is still the same process?
It's a great question. I would say that all of the grief has similarities and differences, for sure. The amount that it comes on can vary. When we're in anticipatory grief, I really like to point out to clients that they've been grieving for a long time and they usually feel really exhausted. And I point out, listen, your heart has kind of been preparing and you've been holding your breath for so long. There's this other level of the grief that's exhausting, and there's sometimes some guilt because there's a little bit of relief. And I just really encourage them to say, that's normal. Been through a lot, and your sweet one is now resting at peace and no longer suffering. So of course, you're allowed to have, feel whatever you want to feel. That's one side of it. And then you're right, with the sudden and tragic deaths, it can come on so quickly out of nowhere. And sometimes with that, some denial happens. Some denial, like, okay, did this really happen? It's kind of that out of body experience. And it's just really comforting. And So helpful to know that people aren't alone in this type of grief and that unfortunately it happens all the time. And to be around people that are in similar situations so they can identify most definitely is helpful. But yeah, the grief, there's a lot of similarities, but then there are some differences. And I found that each person has their own unique journey. I just really hold space for them to do it their way. There's no right or wrong way. There's healthy choices and not healthy choices. So there's no real wrong or right way. It's just moving through it instead of staying stuck in it.
Is there a time limit for grief?
Great question. There's not. There's not. I see both spectrums. I have clients that are highly successful and have really demanding jobs, and their life is full and full of responsibilities. And I help them really take the time to honor their grief so they don't have to go back to it. It's like, get the work done now so you don't have to come back to it. And it can happen kind of on their own timeline. And then I have other clients that will have a really deep relationship with their sweet one that they lost, and they continue kind of this grieving process, and it's kind of like layers. It just kind of takes time for them. And I always say that time doesn't necessarily heal all wounds, but doing healthy decisions in the time and doing the work, that's when the healing really happens. I personally work with clients. I don't have any packages. I work with them one-on-one, and they can come and go as much as they want to or need to, one session at a time, right? And so I do have some clients that will come for several sessions. I have some that will come for one and then come for a tune-up later if an anniversary happens and they're wanting to share. Yeah, there's no real timeline, but there are some healthy indicators and some not so healthy indicators.
They say when someone's going through grief, they lost a piece of themselves, a piece of their soul, mind, heart. And some people, they have an idea in their mind that they can replace a loved one with another loved one. So if they lose a cat, they get another cat. If they get a dog, they get another dog or fish or turtle, whatever it be. But then something happens also. They love them, but then they still miss what they had because they start to think, well, the other dog would do this, and now this dog is doing all this stuff, and this cat is not doing what I love the most about my old cat. It's a bit of, putting off the legacy of our old loved one onto our new loved one that we're trying to build a relationship with, but we're being that roadblock. We're giving ourselves all of these ideas of why you're not perfect or you're great, and it makes it more difficult for us to love them.
Yeah, super great awareness. I love it. You are amazing. You really are. Yes, I mean, I can give you an example, personal example. So my husband and I, we have boxers. Those are our children. My husband has a beautiful daughter who's in her 20s, but we don't have any skin children, flesh children, right? We have our fur babies. And one of our boxers passed suddenly, Winston, and I was waiting. I would have probably, because we had Spencer who grew up with Winston. Spencer was grieving. I was grieving myself. I was grieving for Spencer. And I waited about 6 months. My husband and I lived in Florida at the time, and it was hurricane season. My husband was away working. I couldn't do it by myself, having a puppy. So 6 months went by, and we decided, okay, we're going to get one. His name is Charlie. Got him at 9 weeks old. And yeah, comparison happens. It does. It's just a natural thing, right? It's really, I would say, oh my gosh, what did we get into? Did I make the right decision? And all of those things that we think about, which are okay. Here's what I've come to realize. Number one, baby Charlie turned into an amazing dog. I love him for who he is. And it was a good mirror and lesson to life in general, right? Just like you mentioned in the opening, that they're kind of mirrors And it's a beautiful way to live. They live in the moment. It was really a conscious choice to honor who he is and allow him to be him. And it's funny because I see some things that Winston would do in him. So I'm like, Winston, are you in there? Ear will perk a certain way, or his eyes will look a certain way. I'm like, Winston used to do that. Funny how it all works out, for sure. I know that the replacement thing is a big issue, meaning it's a big topic and it's an important one. The replacing part, I believe we never replace. It's bringing a new love into the home and opening our heart to exploring and having another relationship, even though we miss our sweet one that just passed. And I'll tell you, I'm personally going through anticipatory grief because Spencer is now kind of on a decline. He's the love of my life. I don't think I'll ever have a dog like him. And that's okay. So I know it's going to hit me really, really hard. And I know that God designed us to nurture. It's my big belief that we are here to love many. Just like you said, we live longer than they do. They're God's creatures and we're called to take care of them. And they bring us so much joy. I think having them short amount of time means that we can do their legacy and have others in our lives and really enjoy life with them and take care of them.
I remember when I used to go to the dog park. This was when I was still living in Connecticut. And I have a dog. Her name's Scarlett, and she's 12 right now. And she's a German Shepherd Lab Husky mix. And it's a crazy mix, high energy, everything. So we went to the dog park almost every day. So I was a teacher at the time. When I got off work, we went straight to the dog park for 2, 3 hours, just to get all the energy out. Because she knew the next day she was going to be at the house by herself, just kind of chilling, waiting to go to the dog park. And there was a guy at the dog park. He had a golden retriever or like retriever, and he was training, like he was housing the dog and taking it to training to be a service animal. And it was interesting because I would ask some questions because he loved this dog. He owned a grocery store in Shelton, Connecticut. I forget the name of the grocery store. And he would do this, every 3 years, get a new dog and train it to be a service animal. And the dog didn't pass. He had first dibs to take the dog in, of course, but all his dogs have passed at that time. And I asked him, I said, isn't it hard to get rid of your dog because you had this dog for 3 years while the dog was a puppy, taking it to training, and the dog's in the store and is greeting all the customers, and like, won't you miss that? And he says, I used to, but having this situation taught me to love more quickly. And that was so powerful to me because at the time, my dog was maybe 3.5 or something along those lines. I was thinking about, I never want to get rid of my dog. I don't want to relinquish it to anybody. It's my dog. And then so the aspect that they can be those unconditional givers, because we can sometimes have conditions when we love as humans, but no matter what, those animals, they'll come to us when we're sad, when we're happy. Maybe if they're not feeling 100%, they will still put us first, and they teach us how to love. How can we start to love more like animals?
Yes, well, I think you just said it brilliantly and such a great illustration with a gentleman that you got to become friends with, and he modeled it. And it made you curious, right? And that's what I think we do is we take the good and we really find how we can do better with it. Yes, it's for ourselves, the love, but it's also, I think, I can't remember how this saying goes. You can be a river or a reservoir, right? We can hold it in. I used to work for John Maxwell, so I think that's one of his sayings. But we can hold it in or we can release and keep it flowing. And you're right, our animals, no matter what they are, dog, cat, horse, anything, their unconditional love, their forgiveness, loyalty, non-judgmental. They stay in the present moment, and they're everything we wish humans would be. It's wonderful to take lessons from them and to be able to have our hearts open just like they do, most definitely, because it is unconditional love. And I love how that gentleman learned to love quickly. We know grief is going to happen. So let's kind of get comfortable with it so we know how to move through it and then pay it forward to other people and roll up our sleeves and help them. I think it's the same way with love. Is we always come to intersections in our life where we have the choice to dig into love, or we can kind of turn our back and have some selfish motives. It really is having that conscious choice of love wins. That's what I believe. I mean, love really does. Love is incredible. And sometimes, yes, there's conditions because they're boundaries, they're healthy boundaries to take care of ourselves and others. Definitely, animals teach us to love, and I think that's our higher calling.
I asked all those wonderful questions because I know there's going to be people dealing with these same exact things right now. And pet ownership has been rising over the years. People love animals. People are dealing with this unconditional love, and they're falling in love with it because we have become so secluded as people. We have become very individualistic in our mind. We don't necessarily need to worry about the person who grows our food because we go to the grocery store. We don't need to know our neighbors because we can see what they're doing on social media. We have lost the interaction. So what people generally did was they gravitated toward having a family pet or just a companion. And they definitely damned the day that they have to, bid them farewell. And it's almost a bit of denial that it will happen sometimes because it's almost like we'll be here forever. And even in our life as humans, we don't necessarily look at our deathbed and say, well, that's our future, even though it is our reality. We only look at the positive, the prosperity, and we do have to be real, like it is going to happen. But we do and we should cherish the moments that are good. My final question to you is, how can we start to relish in the moment of our furry friends and today where we're not worried about only the moments when we're going to lose them, but how we can appreciate them right now?
Yes, this is a great topic. And somebody just told me, I'm on social media, but not that much, but somebody just told me that there's like this trend going on where people on social media are putting their animals on and talking about anticipatory grief and how, oh my gosh, I love this topic. So I'm grateful that you brought it up. Yes, I might say some funny things, but trust me, they aren't funny, but they might sound funny if you haven't heard them for the first time. So some of your listeners will be like, what is she talking about? I think it's really about anytime that we have fear, which that's what usually anticipatory is, fear of the outcome of what inevitably is going to happen and not knowing when it's going to happen. The biggest thing with fear is I believe that we're scared that we won't be able to handle it. If our mind's eye kind of plays it out and says, I can handle this, I will get resources, I am equipped, and I'm going to enjoy this time now. That's the best way. And I even talking to Spencer, sometimes I'll cry and I'll tell him, I know that your expiration date is coming quicker than I want. And I just love and appreciate everything that we've done together. And I'm going to do the best that I can to handle my grief in a healthy way when you do pass. And it's just kind of having those conversations because I think if we tiptoe around it, but really there's some healing that happens when we actually talk to our animals in that way and just kind of release it and enjoy the moment. Just like you said, it's so, so important. Yes, there is the reality that they are going to pass, and really equipping ourselves to know where our resources are and to know that, you know what, life is short and there aren't any guarantees of time. Let's really enjoy the time that we have and do good in the world with it.
Beautifully said. And I loved our conversation, Rachel. It's going to be a wonderful listen to anyone who is in a situation like this or going through a situation like this, because we will go through it. But if you're in it right now, it can feel very lonely. How can people find you and begin working with you?
Yeah, my website is Rachel, Rachel dash Shirley, my last name, SHIRLEY.com. And then I just released my book. It's on Amazon, Pet Loss and Divine Healing. And it's a compassionate guide for navigating your devastating loss. So they can just pick this up on Amazon. And I'm only a phone call away. You can just have anybody that wants to, they can hop on my website. My phone number's there. I always have it for my clients 24/7. So yeah. And I thank you for our time. You're doing amazing work, and I'm so honored to be here with you. And I hope we can do this again.
Yes, I'm honored to have you as a guest, and I'm going to make it easy for everyone to check out what you're doing to get your book. The links are going to be in the description box below. I encourage everyone to reach out to you, even just to say hi, to get the book, to share the book with anyone who's going through it. I love gifting books to individuals that are going through certain situations because maybe they're not ready to hear what I have to say, but you can always pick up the book when you're ready. You can always pick up the phone, send a message when you're ready. And that's what I love about coaches, that they're always there when you're ready. I want to thank you so much, Rachel, for being a wonderful guest, coming on and talking about your work.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an honor to know you and to be your friend.
All right, everyone. I would like to thank you so much for watching and tuning into that episode with Rachel Shirley and myself. As you can see, a lovely, kind soul. And I just love having wonderful guests come on, talk about their work and the aspect that they're human too, with Spencer, and the aspect that they are aware of what people are going through. Because I find some of the best coaches have gone through it. They understand the feeling. From there, they're able to not only input sympathy and empathy, but an awareness that we might be blindsided to. I always say we have blind spots, and it's important that we navigate through the process of healing and grieving. Because if we just kind of say, well, this happened, this is life. Yeah, sure, it is life. There is a right and wrong way to grieve. I have been on both sides. I have been on the wrong side of grieving. I've been on the right side of grieving. What I can tell you is going alone, like just by yourself in your room, just hitting the wall, hitting the brakes, stopping, that's not a good thing. I'm not saying that you can't have some seclusion when you're going through it, but you should lean on individuals, lean on people. And I understand sometimes having friends or family and then showing emotion to them can be daunting because you don't know how they're going to react, because they might see you as this individual who's strong and powerful and maybe stoic. But what do we do when we need help? Are we too prideful to ask for help, to ask for a hand, to ask for a shoulder to cry on if we need to? We have separated ourselves from our emotions in a sense, instead of understanding them and working through them. We just can't keep hiding things away, hiding the hard moments in our life, the scary moments in our life. And I have found that coaching is powerful because you have an individual that you might know, that you might have worked with before, but it's a new person, a person who's not going to necessarily judge you because you're going through it. It's a person that wants to help you, a person that wants to see you get better, see you get healed. And we will all go through grief in our life. We might feel it a bit differently. Some people are going to be more emotional. Some people are going to be attached from their emotions. So if they lose a loved one, family member, a pet, whatever, you are going to be going through it differently. But for the individuals that treat their pets like family, that have been with them for years, that you've taken care of, that you've sacrificed for maybe. Because maybe you're like, I want to go to the Bahamas, but I can't go to the Bahamas because I have to take care of the dog. Sacrifice. This is everything that is the embodiment of love and care. One of the things that I am going to do for my kids is that when they're an appropriate age and I know they can take care of an animal, they're going to get their own. All right, this is your animal. You want a turtle, you want a fish, whatever it be. I'm going to allow them to go through the process of loving and caring, because there is a time limit for how much we have to give them in their formative years. So we have to teach them how to be emotionally intelligent in the sense of understanding their emotions and caring their emotions and all of that. It changes as we grow up, but when they're young, they should learn the moral compass. And if they have a moral compass that is harmful and mean, for example, my son right now, he's 1, he'll go outside and pick up an insect. He treats the insect so kind and so loving. You know, he would make sure he doesn't squish it or anything, and he would just give it to me and go, oh, look, you got a bug. But I remember when I was a kid, at some point when I was like smashing ants, and I'm thinking in my head, you know, there are certain bugs that I loved, and like worms, like I would like, oh, look, a worm or a firefly. But then there's certain insects like spiders, for example, right? I don't care about spiders, but certain people hate spiders. Bees, I like honeybees. I wouldn't kill a honeybee. A ladybug, same thing. But I know there's people who are definitely afraid of ladybugs. There's going to be different aspects to what is for you. And I understand that you might not be a dog lover, or you might not be a cat lover, or you might not like certain animals, or heck, you might not like or any animal at all, and maybe you have allergies or something along those lines. You learn something from those animals. And even if it's just a passing glance, if you're at a park and you see someone with their dog, and the dog is, you know, so loving, so affectionate, how they treat kids, they have their own personality. Just the other day, I was at the park with my son, and there was, one of our neighbors was walking his dog, and the dog's off leash, perfectly, trained and everything. And the dog knows how to interact with different children. And this is something that the owner never really taught the dog. It was just, the dog just has a temperament for dealing with certain children. And they can get a good read on the children that they're going to play with. If the kid is timid, I'll hang back. If the kid is rambunctious, the dog will fight and play around a little bit more rough. And I was talking to the owner, and the owner was saying, isn't it amazing how that dog just knows how to interact with each child? It's like a sixth sense. We might think of it as, it's a hindrance to go through this process of loving something and losing something. But 'tis life. We will go in life, we will fail, we will lose things, we will lose loved ones, we will lose jobs, we will lose opportunities. But then we look on the other side. What did we learn? What did we gain? What did we accomplish? From there, we can start to see the silver lining. Yes, if you're going through grief right now, it can be a difficult moment. And I want you to live in it. I want you to appreciate that. It's like the yin and the yang. I always talk about it. You're going to have good. You're going to have bad in your life. We can consider the moment when you lose someone bad, but we cannot forget the good that they have brought. We have to have the balance. Life is balanced. We live and we die. And then there's the aspect of, if in life do you truly live? And I have found that pet owners, they learn how to live a lot better than people who do not learn to love someone else or something else. Because to live only for yourself creates no legacy. It creates no ambition, no fulfillment. And I have clients who come to me when they have accomplished all of these wonderful things in their life, all the money, all the houses and all the cars and everything, but they do not have fulfillment. If you can grieve, you have found some fulfillment in your life. And just because you're grieving, it doesn't mean that you have lost the fulfillment. You're able to have the space now. You have created it for more love in your life. And that is what we need. We need to learn how to love, and we also need to know how to go through those hard moments. So if you are going through a hard moment, I encourage everyone to reach out to Rachel Shirley. Her link is in the description box below, and you can go to her website. You can get her book if you're going through it. A book changed my life when I was going through maybe the deepest grief of my life. That book is for anyone who wants to know it. I already said it on the podcast before. The 10 things to do when your life falls apart. Now, this is for like human loss and grief, but we do have to be able to look at grief can come in different shapes and sizes. If you're going through a loss of a pet, you need that certain shape, and Rachel's book is going to be that shape to fit that piece that you might be missing right now in your heart and your mind and your soul. So do not let that space just become a gaping chasm of a black hole where you just keep on throwing negativity and creating isolation. Find a way to heal in a healthy manner where you can learn to grow and be a better person because of the situation, rather than demise the situation that you're currently in and the emotions that you're currently feeling. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.